Well, it's Thursday, 17th March 2022. Good morning, I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to This is AM Prime. Well, a busy day in the country. Well, from yesterday into overnight into this morning. And we're getting to that in a minute, the reshuffle in the cabinet. What do you make of it? What do you make of some attempts to play down some of the moves in there? Other people are speculating that something big is going on in the cabinet. That's one of the stories in one of the papers this morning. One of the doctors, Dr. Hamid Ghani, Professor Hamid Ghani, making that point. We'll get to that on two sides of the program. We begin with it and we'll end with it. In the middle, we'll talk with people continuing to I'd say, prosecute outside of the court. That is the question of Trinidad and Tobago citizens, mothers and children in particular, still stuck in refugee camps in the Middle East and in Syria and other places, trying to get them home. We'll talk with Mr. Tajmeed Ali about that in the middle of the program. Of course, we'll share with you some of the staples, the COVID-19 numbers, the Newsday question, and the poll. But right now, with us, David Abdullah, political leader of the Movement for Social Justice. He was one of those early on the mark yesterday after the big reshuffle in the cabinet, and he issued a statement saying it's no big thing. He said it won't change the price of coffee. Well, where I come from, they say cocoa, but it doesn't matter. It's a big, that's the term we use. The Movement for Social Justice states that the cabinet reshuffle announced by the Prime Minister won't change the proverbial price of coffee. He said the timing of the announcement coming as it does, apparently as a shot out of the blue, is clearly a strategy of Dr. Rowley to change the public narrative and to shift the attention away from issues that are very important to citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And he goes on to list some of those issues. Mr. Abdullah is with us now. Good morning. Good to have you.
Morning, Andy. Thanks for having me on your program.
All right. And that's a narrative that other people are putting out there, that this is a sort of a narrative-changing move. I mean, so we go through all of that because of that, you think? You really?
Well, I mean, there may be other factors, but the extent of the changes, in other words, if it was simply a matter of Minister Clarence Rambrat resigning as a cabinet minister, Minister of Agriculture, then he could have replaced that minister without necessarily doing a major reshuffle, shifting Camille Robinson-Regis and Penny Beckles, shifting them from one post to the other. And then, of course, the major one being the removal of Faris Al-Rawi as Attorney General and bringing in Reginald Amor, Senior Counsel, as AG, and moving Faris to a ministry that is not very high profile, local government and rural development. So that's a major move. So if it was simply a matter of, as I said, one minister wanted to leave the cabinet for whatever reason, then one would not have said this was trying to, change the narrative. But with those other major moves, quite clearly, in my view, the timing of it is to help to change the narrative, shift the focus of major issues that are affecting people in the country. The Paria issue, with the tragedy of the 4 divers losing their life, the issue of the Commissioner of Police merit list, that controversy has been reignited by the interview that Ria Tate did in the Express with Dr. Rowley. And he's saying, well, yes, it was me. I was the person all along. You all didn't know that. Kind of very offhanded comment by him. And not giving up, again, a proper explanation about that whole situation. So that has been reignited. Of course, there's the problem of rising prices that were taking place pre the war in Ukraine, but which has now been exacerbated by the war on Ukraine or in Ukraine. And therefore, particularly food prices are going to go up exponentially in the coming months. So I think the timing of it as a major cabinet reshuffle, coming out of the blue without any pre-suggestions. Sometimes you hear feedback, you in the media, I don't know if you have heard, Andy, so let me put the ball back in your court to some extent, whether the media picked up that there were major problems in the cabinet prior to yesterday's announcement that would have precipitated such a significant move around of ministers. But in the absence of those kinds of discussions or challenges within the cabinet, I think part of it, the timing of it, was to shift the narrative. But more fundamental than that, and we could have all kind of speculation about what is taking place and not taking place and why this and why that. But I think more fundamental than all of that is for the country as a whole, is the fact that it will be more of the same. In other words, whether Mrs. Robinson-Regis is Minister of Planning and Development or Minister of Housing and Urban Development, or whatever the name of that ministry is, and Ms. Beckles has moved back to Planning and Development where she was under Mr. Manning many years ago. To my mind, that doesn't change the price of cocoa, price of coffee, whichever one you want to use, because the policy set is the same. The issues of WASA and WASA transformation, what that is going to mean, the issue of port transformation and what that is going to mean in terms of job losses, in terms of whether the trade unions will continue to represent workers there, TSTT restructuring, retrenchment taking place, whether there's going to be a trade union there as continuing after TSTT restructuring. All of these things are going to continue, and therefore the impact of government policies on workers, the vulnerable, the poor, the unemployed, they don't care who is minister of what, if food prices are going up, people don't really care who is minister of what. If workers are losing their jobs, they don't care who is minister of what. It is the government's policy. And once the government is pursuing the same policy set, then that is what we have to focus on.
Right, and those issues will remain, right?
That's to educate people around why those things are happening and put forward alternatives to the policies the government is implementing.
Right, and so those issues will remain. But you don't think
yes. Oh, yes. I mean, the Attorney General has nothing to do with how the Port Authority is going to be restructured, or how TSTT is going to be restructured, or how WASA is going to be restructured. Who is AG? Not going to change the price of coffee over those matters. Whether workers are losing their jobs, the food price increases. The government has had 2 years since COVID to get their act together to implement very rigorous programs of increasing food production, and that didn't happen. I don't see Kazim Hussain as minister coming in and changing that around. The Prime Minister did not attend the intersessional meeting of heads of government of CARICOM. You were a journalist at one time, Andy, who used to cover all the CARICOM heads of government meetings.
I still do.
For one of the newspapers here.
Yes.
But, when a Prime Minister does not attend intersessional heads of government meeting, either virtually or physically, that is a matter of concern, particularly when the region is trying to grapple with the impact of COVID, when the war in Ukraine had begun, and he was absent, but he found time to go to Barbados on some personal visit to play golf or to Lyme. I don't know what he went there for. But to me, that's an indication that overall the government is not going to change in terms of its governance style, its policies, and therefore the impact of those things on the average citizen of Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, so two things we want to look at and get your view on. One is the shift from Al-Rawi to Amor, and you make a point here about why we should look at Mr. Amor, but Al-Rawi as well. So what do you make of his saying, well, look, I'm embracing this thing about local government with my both hands and so on? You think he's just out there trying to show himself up?
Yeah, he's trying to put a smile on a face that is probably not happy at all. I mean, the Attorney General is the second person who has to be sworn in order for a cabinet to be formed in accordance with the Constitution. So the Attorney General is always a very high-profile person and has a major responsibility, not only as legal advisor to the cabinet, but in terms of the government's legislative agenda, and is a major spokesperson for the government, therefore, in the parliament and nationally otherwise. So for him to move to rural development and local government, which has never been in this country given much priority, to my mind, and he's saying, well, local government reform is coming up and he has major responsibility. Well, that might be true, but I don't know that is anything other than trying to put, a positive spin on what must be quite a painful blow to him and his own, ego and so on.
Right, and the question is that there is likely to be some contest for the political leadership of the party. The Prime Minister hinting back in 2020 that he didn't want to be taken out feet first, and he had things to do and places to go. And there is some underground. You were asking about discussion among media people. That's stuff that gets to us, and that's one of them. That there is something happening concerning the change of leadership in the party, and so some people are more excited about that than anything else. So that is in the mix as well, won't you say?
Yes, it can be, and it was very interesting that the Prime Minister also, made the point that in the interview, I think with Rhea Tate, that the party PNM does not have a policy of changing the leader midstream. Yes. When they're in government, and that is true. Unlike, say, for example, in England, the sitting prime ministers, as powerful as Thatcher was, Margaret Thatcher was, and she was very powerful, in the middle of her term as prime minister, they moved her out.
And the same thing with Theresa May.
Theresa May lost her position as prime minister as well. So that's a different culture to what we have here. And so there may be rumblings within the PNM. There may be persons who are unhappy within the party with Dr. Rowley's leadership. But at the same time, I don't know that this cabinet reshuffle strengthens his position necessarily if the policies of the government, because ultimately the fortunes of the party, given the nature of our politics, the fortunes of the party are linked to the fortunes of the government. So unless the government changes its policy set, then regardless of, who are the ministers, it's not going to alter the fortunes of the party. And, so the only way they could decide to do something differently if somebody decides to challenge Dr. Rowley, and then there's a fundamental shift in the party's policies in government. That is the only way that would work, in my view.
All right.
Everything else is just, people jockeying for positions.
Right. Now, I want to come to the question of the fortunes of the party, as you mentioned, from a finance point of view, because it's a point that Dr. Ghani makes in his response to this guide in the Express this morning. But before you go to that, you want people to understand something about who, I'm going to say my friend, I think he is, Reginald Armour is. You say that he was the attorney involved, he was the lead attorney for the government in what happened with Petrotrin and so on. So that is something you're saying that we must remember.
And I know Mr. Armour as well, for many years, and his wife, Elizabeth Solomon. I've known them for many years, and so on. And but we have been on other sides of the issue of defending workers, because traditionally he has defended employers in the industrial court, and he was the attorney for Petrotrin in that very important case in 2018, which Petrotrin lost. And subsequently, what I understand actually has appealed to the appeal court. But Petrotrin lost the issue of which the industrial court ruled on, of its violating the memorandum of agreement that was signed earlier in 2018 between the company and the OWQ, of which memorandum of agreement established a mechanism and a process for discussions for the restructuring of Petrotrin, which of course would not have meant closure of Petrotrin. And the union was going to be engaged in that process in a very open way to arrive at solutions for Petrotrin. Now, I actually gave evidence in the industrial court in that matter on behalf of the union on the issue of the fabrication of this view, which was being promoted by the government, that if Petrotrin was not closed down and all the workers sent home, then the country would have ended up in a serious crisis, because the international ratings agencies, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and so on, would have downgraded the country, and our credit worthiness would have gone down to junk status, and that would have had a huge implication for Trinidad and Tobago. You remember that whole narrative? It was a false narrative. I gave evidence. I put into evidence the reports by Moody's and Standard & Poor's. I put into evidence statements by the Minister of Finance and others and so on. And Reggie Armour was the lead counsel for Petrotrin. He cross-examined me and he couldn't shake my evidence, nor could senior counsel Jairam Sinath, who was representing the Attorney General in the matter, and he couldn't shake my evidence either. So, you know, Mr. Moore, well, he's an attorney, gets briefs and so on, as is his right to do. But I just wanted to remind workers in the country, you know, that he represented Petrotrin in that major issue of the closure of the company.
And lost. All right, so...
And he lost. He lost in the court, yes. The union's attorney was Douglas Mendes, senior counsel, yes.
And they are as close buddies as you could get to both of them. That's interesting.
Yes, because Mr. Mendes, I think, actually succeeded Mr. Amor as the president of the Law Association.
Yeah. All right, so come to Dr. Ghani in the paper here, saying something that he says that this has, well, its implications go to the financiers of the PNM, because he's saying that there's something that happened there with the way in which Gary Griffith was ousted in his bid for a second run at Commissioner of Police, and perhaps party financiers take a dim view of that, and so something is bubbled there that has led to this. What is your sense that is the case?
I didn't see the article as yet, but that could be so. There may be some persons who were unhappy in the business community with, you know, the fact that the government did not only not support Guy Griffiths, but the way in which it happened. That might be a factor. But removing Faisal Rawi as Attorney General may also have an impact on party financing, because, of course, you know, his wife is comes from a prominent member of the Syrian business community, as is well known. So that may also impact negatively on the fundraising by the PNM. One doesn't know. But as you mentioned that, Andy, there is a Joint Select Committee of Parliament for the second time, which was appointed to address the issue of the draft legislation which was laid in Parliament on party finance regulations, which the draft bill is going to amend the Representation of the People's Act. So the administration submitted a very detailed memorandum quite some time ago, more than a year ago. And you know, we don't know what's happening with that, and whether, because they're supposed to report, I think, by April, the end of April. We're now in the middle of March, so we don't know if that party finance legislation is also going to be dead in the water. But we shall see, because if that law, if that bill becomes law in the way in which it was framed, with amendments that are necessary to clean it up, but if that happens and there is transparency in reporting of how parties get their money and who they get their money from, then that would be a major revelation for the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, and this Dr. Winfred James in this report also saying that the Prime Minister should give an explanation as to why he made these changes, but that's not the norm. Should he break out of the norm, and because some of these things need proper explanation, he should outline why he did this.
Yeah, I mean, normally you get a sense in, you know, from other, you know, changes. You know, the Prime Minister may not give all the details, but he may say, okay, this is to better realign cabinet responsibilities with, you know, particular skill sets, or there's a new focus on a particular issue, and we would like to have this minister now take charge of the area because this is now a priority for the government, given XYZ. So there normally may be some suggestion as to why this is happening. But, you know, both Mrs. Robinson-Regis and Ms. Beckles are very experienced cabinet members. They've served under Mr. Manning in various cabinet positions, and now under Dr. Rowley and so on. And so I don't understand what the switch is there, unless it is that Mrs. Robinson-Regis is going to be more, I don't know what's the right word, party focused in terms of how housing is going to be dealt with. That's the only thing I could think about. And Ms. Beckles perhaps is a little bit more laid back in that regard. I'm not sure what that is about. Certainly, I think the Prime Minister needs to explain why there was a need for a new Attorney General. You know, that is, and to bring somebody from outside of the cabinet. You know, I think, you know, when there was the last cabinet reshuffle was after Mr. Franklin Khan passed away. Well, yes. Obviously, that required,
some
addressing.
changes.
You lost a minister because of death. So you needed to have a new energy minister, and therefore you needed to make perhaps some other realignments to cover all the bases properly. So one could understand that. So Minister Stuart Young was moved from national security to energy because he had been involved in many of the negotiations with energy companies
in any case,
and so on. So that was a kind of smooth transition, if you wish. He had familiarity with those issues, so he was able to move there. So you had a gap in the Ministry of National Security, so you had to fill that. So that was understandable. Now, in this case, that's what I'm saying, if Minister Rambarat resigned, and we would really like to know, what were the circumstances for that resignation, that perhaps would come out in the open sometime or the other.
Yeah, so you
have
don't
to
think
fill that ministry.
You don't think it's
backfill in that regard.
Yeah.
But none of those things explain why the Attorney General was moved. You don't move Attorney Generals just like that.
Exactly. Yes, going back to Carl Hudson Phillips back in 1970 and so on. But you think Mr. Rambarat, you think there's something that triggered his decision to pack up and leave? It wasn't just he decided, well, he's been missing his family for too long. Something happened to make him decide to do that. Yes.
Now, whether it was personal or whether it was political, there'll be speculation, and the only way that speculation could be laid to rest is if he himself comes out with a very open, transparent statement about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not familiar with his own family circumstances, so it may be personal, or there may have been some political issue about how the Ministry of Agriculture was being run, and that needs some explanation, I think, but it would have to come from him. I don't think it would come from anybody else.
All right, but these matters will continue as we wrap it up with the Prime Minister's disclosures now that have been running in the Express for the last 5 days are serial. I don't think we've ever seen that before. An interview with the Prime Minister occupying front of the book treatment for 4 or 5 days, and the more it comes out, the more questions are being asked, and he should answer to some of those questions that have arisen from some of those disclosures, right? You'd say.
Yeah, agreed. And as I said in my press conference on Sunday last, and the media picked up on some of it, but not all of it. I mean, I don't normally describe, people in the political realm using adjectives, and I describe their policy set and criticize their policy set. But I came around to having to say publicly that the Prime Minister has been stumbling and bumbling. And this is what that interview that he had on Sunday was another example that has been running, is another example of that. And his handling of other matters in the country are poor. They're poor. Where's the roadmap for recovery? What is happening with respect to the issue of addressing our food security, which was a key issue that arose 2 years ago with COVID. There isn't any proactive decision-making by the government except to restructure companies, attack labor, destroy the trade union movement, send workers home, and in the process, implement what we call neoliberal policies, which globally and here in Trinidad and Tobago make the rich wealthier and make the poor poorer and impoverish the middle income earners.
All right.
That is what is happening in this country, and that is not good for the country. As I said in the press conference on Sunday, that is going to be the legacy of Dr. Rowley. And I spoke to other PNM Prime Ministers, Dr. Williams, Mr. Chambers, Mr. Manning, and there were things that one could say negative about all of them, of course, but there were certain things that they left behind as a certain legacy. Mr. Chambers, in terms of strengthening our manufacturing sector to become very strong exporters, at least within CARICOM, and so on. Mr. Manning built, major buildings and infrastructure. Dr. Williams, of course, Point Resource and education and much more, and taking us out of colonialism into independence and to Republican status. But what is Dr. Rowley's legacy going to be?
All right.
Can you point to anything that is positive and transformational in a progressive way? And you can't.
All right. The conversation will go on. David Abdullah, political leader of the Movement for Social Justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy, for having me. Take care.
All right. In the next hour, we get back into this discussion. We're talking with former government minister, political strategist, in my view, of a senior order, Dr. Bo Tiwari. But in the middle, when we come back, we'll be talking with Mr. Tajmeen Ali, he and a group of other people took an ad in the paper a couple of days ago calling for national attention and support to bring people, Trinidad and Tobago citizens, women and children in the main, who've been stuck in refugee camps in the countries in the Middle East. With us, we'll share with you also the staples, the COVID numbers, and the Newsday poll and that stuff. So we're just getting going here. We'll be back in a moment.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
We're on set with a strength and conditioning coach. His name is Mr. Gregory Seal, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about what strength and conditioning means.
For instance, in the EPL or the La Liga, where it's so high, and I'm constantly hearing young people saying that they want to play in these leagues, but these leagues are demanding physically. So if you're not preparing your bodies for that early, you're not going to make it. But we also use it as a form of fatigue monitoring.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Pretend we're in darkness and you love me. We Comedy Jam Season 3 is finally here.
Trinity people just give you the landmarks you don't need. On the right hand side, you'll see a standpipe. I put on this P on that standpipe.
To me, COVID is a red girl, yes? I have no money.
Tune in to WESN every Monday from 8 p.m. to hear your favorite comedians bring you the laughs.
So from above the waist, Indian, but below the waist, still Indian. So.
That's not all. Catch us for a repeat every Thursday.
Where's a little bit of wrinkle when you're steamy, right? You know what I mean?
We Comedy Jam, only on WESN, your content capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back. Well, one of the things we like to do on this program, and indeed right through our work here at WESN, is to stay with an issue for as long as it's possible, for as long as it's necessary, even though we're talking in a situation where the narrative is that the Prime Minister has tried to change the national narrative with this cabinet reshuffle. It's nothing more than that, but we'll be talking about that as well. But so we want to come back to an issue we've been trying to deal with from time to time on this program. The people, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, particularly mothers and children stuck in these refugee camps in Syria and elsewhere, and with no support from the state in trying to get them back home. People have had to go to court, people have gone to court to try and address this issue. It is with us, and there's this latest effort to do that. And some people put an ad in the paper last week, and I saw it, and I said, well, that's a way to keep in touch with this story. So we're talking about that this morning with three people who are concerned citizens regarding that. Mr. Tamjeed Ali, Ms. Sauda Ali, and Ms. Rahima Khan. Good morning to the three of you.
Good morning. Good morning, Andy.
All right, Mr. Ali, could you start us off with so you all put an ad asking for more public support to address this issue. So start the conversation on that note.
Are you hearing me, Andy?
Yes, I'm hearing you. You hearing me?
Yes, I am hearing you.
Yes, so I'm saying let's start the conversation about the fact that you all put an ad in the paper asking, or an appeal asking for people to join this campaign to force the authorities to pay more attention, to bring people back home who are stuck in these places, in some cases through no fault of their own.
Andy, this has been 3 years now that we are trying to speak with government personnel. We have set packages to everybody concerned, Prime Minister, President, AG, National Security Ministry, Foreign Affairs. The only person who answered or replied to us was the President, nobody else. And we kept trying to get to talk to them, and they won't talk to us. So we end up having to go to court, and that was a mess. So we are trying to get Trinidad and Tobago to see that we have people, women and children, suffering. And up to last week, 5 people died, 5 children died, or not last week, week before, because of the coldness and all that in Syria, in these camps. And we are trying to get them out of that. And we are not getting help at all from the government. In fact, they are refusing to help us.
You said, so 5 of those people whom this action is about, trying to bring them back, 5 children, you said, died because of harsh weather conditions in Syria.
No, the children who died are not Trinidadians, but Trinidadians are suffering, so they might die too, Andy.
Yes. You said you all heard from Her Excellency the President. What did she say in her response to your appeal?
Say that again?
You said you heard only from the President. I'm trying to get a sense of what did she say in her response to your appeal?
What she said was that she can't really help, but she will pass it to National Security because she's also concerned about it.
And that was how long ago?
That was about almost 2 years.
And okay. And you have not sought to find out whether she did what she said she would do or anything like that?
She did, because we wrote her twice and she answered again, and she said she did send it to them.
Yes. All right, so let's hear from you, Ms. Sauda Ali. What's your take?
Hi, yes.
Morning, yes, go ahead, Sauda Ali.
Yes, we sent that letter 2 years ago, and we got, since 2019, I believe, and we got a response saying she would forward it to the Ministry of National Security to take care of and to look into, which, to our knowledge, they have not responded to us. They have not reached out to us, you know. So the public campaign of sorts is to, one, to try to get the public aware of the situation, but also to to try and get the government to speak with us, because we have been trying to get their attention for over 3 years now.
Yeah, and Rahima Khan, what's
yes,
your...
It's the same thing. You know, we need dialogue. The government agencies, they will not, or they refuse to have dialogue with us, even though we've sent them letters, as Uncle Tamjeed has said. Even our lawyers has sent letters to them asking them to come and have dialogue with us. Let us discuss this, try to find a remedy for the situation. Nothing. They completely ignore us. You know, so we are just in limbo. We don't know what is going on and what is the government's position.
All right, so either of you, do you hear at all from some of these people? Are you, what sort of contact are you all in with them?
Let me try and answer that.
Yes, go ahead.
A couple of years ago, I wrote, when we wrote the Ministry of National Security, I took the package for myself and I asked them to sign for receiving it. And about 3 months later, I went back to them and I said, you never replied to this. So they spoke to me then for a couple of minutes and gave me an appointment to see a lady, Camille Rennie. I think she's a lawyer in the ministry. And when I spoke to her, she even cried when I told her what was happening. And she said that I spoke to her in September, and she said by November, something will be done. The next thing is she sent a message on my phone to say that Minister Young told her that Nightingale, this is Daryl Daniel and his team, is handling this, and you can leave that alone. And that's it. We sent a package to Daryl Daniel. He never replied.
So who,
that is the position that we are in.
Yeah, and who's Daryl Daniel?
He is the head of Nightingale. Yeah, I think he's he's the chief of staff in the army or something like that.
And Nightingale is what?
Yeah, Nightingale is something that Minister Young and whoever, they put us together a team to deal with stuff like this, but they have done nothing. They are saying that they have to verify that these are our children. We have passports, we have photos, we have birth certificates, and these people are talking about verification.
Yeah, Rahima Khan, so you all, tell us a little bit about how you all keep in touch with some of them. You keep in touch with them, and what are they saying?
Okay, well, the women are allowed to send one voice note to their family members every week. So the authorities in the camp will give them their phones and they send a message to us, a 1-minute message. So that is how they keep in contact with us. And like I got a message from my sister yesterday, and she said that because of the whole situation in Ukraine, right now it's getting difficult to get food because of the price of flour and wheat and rice and all these things. It's becoming scarce. So they don't know how long they will be able to get aid from these agencies that help them because of what is happening right now in the world. So we don't even know how long they'll be able to get food, how long these agencies are able to provide for these families in the camps.
Yeah, so you have a sister in that. You're saying 1 minute a week. That's the extent of the communication you get from her.
Yes, 1 minute a week.
Soda Ali, what's your personal story?
My personal story is that I don't have like an immediate relative of sorts, but these are our citizens and they are very, very young children. So it's a cause that's very dear to my heart. Some of these people I know personally and I can vouch for them, you know, not being anything of a national security risk to our country. So it's a very dear cause to my heart, and that's why I have joined with these other families in trying to help our government make the decision to repatriate them.
Yeah, well, I don't want to speculate for the government, but the question is that there's a matter in court joined by or put there by a group of attorneys, including Mr. C.J. Williams. I'd spoken with Senior Counsel Elton Prescott about it because he was assisting in that exercise. So you all are part of the group that is involved in that, or you all are outside and separate from that? Mr. Ali?
Yes.
Yes, like...
Go ahead, sir.
Yes.
Hello.
So
no, I was going to say that he this is just one of the means that we have tried, and you know, we have wrote letters. Initially, we started writing letters. When we didn't get a response, we desperately went to the lawyers to see if through the lawyers we'll be able to get a response from the government. That has not been working in our favor as such, and so we have gone to the public, you know, trying to get support from the public.
Yeah, and this is an effort that appeal that appeared in the paper last week, Mr. Ali. So you appealing to, should I say, the conscience of the rest of us?
That's right.
What's been...
We're asking people of Trinidad and Tobago to look at this situation and find that these are little children with their mothers suffering every day for the past 3 years. And our government is just turning their back on this. And I'm saying that outright because Al-Rawi mentioned that these children can grow up to be terrorists or whatever, so we don't want them back.
He said that to you?
He said that in a public meeting, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to verify that you know that he said it somewhere. All right, you said it.
Yes, he did.
All right. Rahima Khan, you're going to have the last word. What do you say at this point?
Well, what I'd like to say is that we have to keep in mind that these are citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. They deserve to come back home. They deserve to be returned home. These are little children from as young as 2 years old, go up to about 14, 15 years old. These children have been living in a camp for 3 years under these conditions. Some of them don't even know what is life outside of the camps. Now, we are asking the government, please find it in your hearts to contact the authorities that run the camp. Verify that these are our citizens. Say that you want them to be returned home. Issue the travel documents for them, the emergency travel documents, and we will be able to bring them home. That's what we want. We don't want them spending another year in the camp because the way things are going now in the world, we don't know if they will survive beyond this year. So we need them home. And please, it's been long enough. 3 years is long enough for them to be suffering. These women have injuries. These children have injuries. They suffer from mental trauma and PTSD. They need psychological help. And we are begging you, we are pleading with the government, please, it's time to bring our citizens home.
All right, well, our thanks to each of you. Thank you very much. And we will stay with this issue as long as it's possible. Thank you all, Mr. Ali, Ms. Ali.
Thank you very much, Andy.
And Ms. Khan. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, so let's take a quick look around the region now before we head up to the news. This is a story about a lady who's identified as an animal rights activist putting a gun on herself in a station in Georgetown, Guyana. Brick Dam, they call it.
The Brick Dam police station became a crime scene this morning after a 49-year-old woman shot herself dead after arriving at the station to be interviewed about a domestic complaint. Dead is Trudy DeHart, who was an animal rights activist and who also worked at the Society for the Prevention of Animals. Family members said she was also a licensed firearm holder. DeHart was at the police station to face questioning over allegations that she maliciously damaged her husband's car. The two were separated. The woman reportedly saw the man this morning and threw an object into his windscreen, damaging it. The husband went to the police station to file a report and pointed her out to the police as she stood outside the station. In a statement, the Guyana Police Force said the wife was invited into the station compound to give her statement, and it was just as she walked towards the inquiry's office, she pulled out a stun gun which was wrapped in a piece of cloth and shot herself in front of the police and the husband. Just after DeHart shot herself and her body fell to the ground, the paramedics were summoned and arrived within minutes. She was pronounced dead at the scene, a few feet away from the inquiry's office. The area was cordoned off as on-duty and off-duty officers appeared shocked and confused by the incident. A sister of the dead woman arrived at the scene and was able to identify the body. The sister, Emily Clark, told reporters that she believes her sister's death was related to some issues in her marriage.
Well, I just called my relatives in Canada and Trinidad, and they told me that she complained about some affair that the husband had. So maybe that's triggered. I have no idea.
Home Affairs Minister Robeson Bend, who also visited the scene, said it was a very unfortunate incident that will be fully investigated.
There has happened what can only be described as an unfortunate incident. It's a matter for the police to investigate, and they are doing so. Unfortunately, it happened right at the inquiry's office, so they are doing the forensics and other work and doing the questioning of the related parties, and we'll hear more of it afterwards. But it's a matter for the police at the moment. But that normal police operation will resume shortly at the inquiry's office. Thank you.
Can you identify the name of the person? Female, male, what's her name or his name?
There's a Ms. DeHart. Apparently it's an animal welfare officer who may have used her tool of the trade to commit suicide. It appears that that is the case.
Investigators from the Criminal Investigations Department of the police force intend to speak to the woman's husband as well as the officers who interacted with her just before she shot herself as part of their investigations.
All right, so news is next here on AM Prime. We continue. On the other side, we're talking with former Government Minister Dr. Botiwari on the changes in the cabinet announced yesterday. The attempt, some people say, to change the national narrative. Will that be the case or not? We'll hear from him. Stay with us.
Seven is out. All day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix-It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix-It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Don't keep yourself handcuffed. We continue to receive calls from members of the viewing public whose cable provider is Flow and cannot receive WESN. We advise that you unfortunately reside on the original Flow platform. If you wish to receive WESN's high-quality programming, you must contact Flow to be upgraded to the new Flow Evo platform. Call Flow now and demand your upgrade.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out, not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
All right, welcome back to the program. Let's get to the numbers now with what they're saying to us this morning. Quickly, COVID-19 in our midst in 2022 March, the new positive cases, the totally recovered patients, people in hospital, and the rest of it. Let's go through those numbers as we move on with the program. 118,129, that's the totally recovered patients. 11,964, the total active positive cases. The death toll thus far, 3,695. 133,788, the total active positive cases, or the total positive cases reported in the country since we began doing that on March 12, 2020. 395, that's the new positive cases reported in the 24 hours up to the end of the day yesterday, and 205, that's the number of persons in hospitals across what is called the parallel healthcare system, taking care of those people who come down with COVID-19. Well, that's where we stand as at the end of the day yesterday, March 16, 2022. Right, so our next guest now, we come back to the issue of the cabinet reshuffle, what it means, what it is intended to cover, what it is intended to divert us from, all of that. We continue that discussion with someone who's very experienced in these matters. He's a man of many parts. He's been a cabinet minister in 2 separate administrations. He's been a top human. He's been a campus principal at the St. Augustine campus of the University of the West Indies. He started at what now is the Lockjack Graduate School of Business and so on. Dr. Bo Tiwari. He's a political strategist and other things. Good morning. Good to have you.
Good morning, Andy. I could hardly hear you, though.
Yeah? All right, well, probably that's good. Probably that's good. Yes,
are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you very well. I was singing your praises there a bit, talking about your vast experience moving from academia into business, into politics, and back again, and you know what I see as a man of strategy. So I think it's good to have you. Yes.
Well, thank you very much. You're very kind.
All right. So let's get to it. Some people say that this reshuffle is meant to change the narrative. But every time there's a cabinet reshuffle, we always say that. What do you think lies behind it to begin with? I mean, and was it out of the blue in your view?
Well, whenever it doesn't matter who the prime minister is. Whenever a prime minister does a reshuffle, it generally is a response to the environment, environmental conditions. Secondly, they would use that cabinet reshuffle to send a signal or a message. And generally, it's a kind of reset button for the political party in power. I think what has been happening is that the political leader within the PNM has been having some challenge because I think Dr. Rowley had indicated some time ago that this may be his last term. And at the last General Council meeting, he indicated that he will be running again for political leader. And he has declared that publicly in the newspapers. So I think what has happened then is that a number of aspirants have been kind of unsettled, and a number of people who were anticipating his exit have become restless. So I think this intervention is perhaps a reassertion of his role as political leader and prime minister, and to reinforce the connection between political leadership and prime ministership. I think he's taking the opportunity to make some corrections. I think in the case of Al-Rawi, he has made some corrections responding to public opinion. And in the case of Rambharat as well, who has not really performed as agriculture minister with his resignation. And I think that he is also responding to the Tobago defeat and the mistakes that they may have made in Tobago, including the structure of the campaign and the ground element of their campaign in Tobago. And he has to calculate that should Tobago go with the new, what can I say, the new governors of Tobago, Watson, Duke, and Farley, he has got to win outright in Trinidad. And therefore, I think he has reset the button in terms of the cabinet appointments to deal with Trinidad as an electoral constituency should the 2 seats in Tobago be lost. Now, within that framework, you might take a sinister view of Kazim Hussein being in agriculture to deal with the issue of land distribution. You could see Camille Robinson Regis dealing with the issue of housing distribution. You can see Faris in local government involved deeply in the local government campaign and dealing with the issue of marginals. So I think that is some of the thinking one can't be sure that went into the reshuffle. And I think we have a pretty fluid political situation in which I think both the support base of the PNM and the support base of the UNC are, I would say, weakened by simply thinking that they offer, the country has been in a situation in which no solutions seem to be rising. And there is the rise of a desire to move away from the traditional parties. And I think all of that is part of the reshuffling strategy of the Prime Minister. But the governance issues will not be dealt with by this reshuffle. The economic recovery issues are not going to be dealt with by this reshuffle. The job creation issues are not going to be dealt with by this reshuffle. And the medium and long-term sustainability issues are not going to be dealt with by this reshuffle either.
So this is about recalibrating on a political level, from a political.
Yes, I think so. I think it has to do with both the relationship between Prime Minister and political leader, the internal problems in the party, and the external politics in which there is growing dissent about governance, not just of the PNM, but the entire traditional political party system. And of course, it's responding to the Tobago loss as well.
Yes, but the way you said it earlier, as though he doesn't get to assume full responsibility for the Tobago loss. As leader of the party and as Prime Minister, don't you think that he has to assume some of the responsibility as to what happened?
Yes, but he probably, leaders take responsibility, but they always find somebody to blame. So he probably is blaming the PNM party in Tobago, the way they conducted the campaign, the leadership there, and so on. Whether it is true or not, it doesn't matter. But to the leader, the perception will influence his decision-making. I think, Andy, Andy, you're a very astute analyst of political situations. And I think what we can understand from what is happening is that in Trinidad and Tobago now, you now have a kind of political stalemate. All right, there's uncertainty about the political and economic future of the country. But that is in the context of all the uncertainties that have come with COVID, post-COVID, the problems of logistics, the rising prices in the world, the reorganization of the world, the geopolitics, etc., and now the war. And there are formidable development challenges that we have in Trinidad and Tobago that require solutions and resolutions that are not being dealt with. So you have a situation on the one hand where you have two alternatives, but people feel that they have run out of options and they want something else and they are looking for it. But there also is a situation in which after 60 years of government, of independent government under conditions of independence, you still have a food crisis. You have a water crisis. You have an energy crisis. You have all the global problems in the world: crime, health, environment, immigration, now being localized, because we have all of those as local problems. We have a significant problem of our education system and of human capital and intellectual capital and social capital formation. And we have challenges with the system now: financing education, absorbing the graduates, the brain drain, the social disintegration that is taking place. And I have not even mentioned yet the financial and economic retrieval problem, which is a situation in which we had basically 6 years of economic decline before COVID, and with COVID now exacerbated. We have energy dependence, structural challenges in transforming the economy. We have a problem of enough exports outside of energy. We have a foreign exchange crisis. We have the price of money issues, which is the devaluation question. And we have the issue of competitiveness in the country. Now, how do we proceed going forward? We've had the roadmap committee. We've had various formulas suggested of what should happen in a reset post-COVID with digitalization and so on. Everybody is aware of the fourth industrial revolution, the geopolitics, the artificial intelligence issue. But we don't seem beyond talk to be moving the country to any kind of advance towards sustainability and recovery and confidence. And I think that this is a problem, not just for the government, but I think for the entire political system. Because in this world, you require solutions. People have to live. You know, they have to drink water, they have to eat, they have to basically educate their children, they have to have jobs, they have to have financial means of sustainability. And these questions are not being addressed in implementation or solution terms in the country by the government or anybody else.
All right, so a lot there to pick at, but you're saying that we should not sneeze at the removal of Al-Rawi from Attorney General to where he is now local government and rural development. You see that as politics in the making, that is going to set the stage for when the election comes. You see Camille Robinson Regis being in a position where probably she will give out more houses, and where Mr. Hossain in agriculture, lands and fisheries will make a better deal for people to get land and so on. And those are political moves meant to put the party itself in a stronger position.
Yes, I think there are real political motives behind the appointments. One having to do with local government, the marginal seats, the issue of relationships, and in a way it opens the door for Al-Rawi for potential leadership. Because, I mean, the PNM has to play for two things. One, they want to win the election, but if they lose, they've got to address the question of succession within the party. So that is possibility. And I see the move from Attorney General, yes, as satisfying criticisms about him, but I see it as a more politically motivated move. I think that is also true in the case of Camille Robinson Regis. I think it is so in the case of Kazim Hussein and Penny Kamiziong, Penny Beckles.
Yes.
In planning, in a way, planning is a very important ministry. It's a strategic ministry. It's a developmental ministry. She has had international experience, so I see that as an managing the leadership. What can I say? Aspirations within the party. while the Prime Minister holds on to political leadership and constitutional power as Prime Minister.
Yeah, and you see him staying on post 2025 because when I read what he's saying about having to assume the responsibility to again seek leadership, he says that so we in the middle of a term and the party doesn't have any history of the political leader not renewing his leadership between elections. So my sense is maybe I'm looking at it too positively that so he will do that to cover the period between now and when the next election is. But that although he said, so he sort of hedged on whether or not he will honor what he said, that he will look to leave without having to be taken out feet first. You think that he's thinking about remaining after 2025?
I don't know. I mean, he may call early elections. I feel that's a possibility. If he reassumes the leadership of the PNM, as he obviously will, and I think part of the structuring of the ministries also have to do with remobilization inside the PNM itself with their party supporters. That does not mean that he will wait until 2025 to have an election. And secondly, it does not mean that he will stay for any long period if he were to continue as leader. If he waits until 2025, he can assume the leadership now and give way to a new leader for the 2025 election. And that is something that they can settle within the party. I think basically the PNM as a ruling party finds itself in a really difficult situation. I mean, the international situation is bad. The financial and economic situation of the country is pretty bad. There is political stirring inside the party. I think there's a lot of dissension and withdrawal in the public at large from the government. And basically, they have lost a bastion of support in Tobago. So I think that the Prime Minister is taking all of these options into account as he makes a political play looking at government and what he can do with the fact that they are the incumbents in office. Whether it will work, I doubt very much. But as I said, the political situation is one in which the country is crying out for solutions, and it doesn't see those solutions coming from the existing parties. And then you have the emergence of new players who might turn out to be challengers or form new parties, etc. And all of this would have to be part of the calculation about when you hold elections, whether you hold local government elections, the importance of that victory now, whether you bring general elections up earlier than 2025. I think all of these things are part of the calculation. You don't solve the problem in one shot. And I think this is the first salvo. He has reasserted his leadership, reasserted the prime ministership and its role. He has changed the cabinet to make certain statements, give certain signals, to indicate certain directions. And he is giving it whatever he thinks is the best shot. Whether it will work is another matter, because there's a lot of restlessness in the society. There's a lot of unemployment. There's a lot of inequality. There is a lot of dissatisfaction with the state of governance, confidence in the economy, progress on the economic front. Large numbers of people are migrating from the country. So, I mean, whether these things will work, I don't know. But for me, the fundamental issue is given the crisis in the world and the crisis in Trinidad and Tobago, what is the solution going forward?
All right.
And that is not just a political solution.
Yeah.
It has to be a political solution. It has to be an economic solution. It has to be a sociological solution. And it has to be a solution that brings together the country in a spirit of trust. We need a stakeholder democracy in Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there.
We need to create the conditions for shared prosperity.
Yeah.
We need a unity of purpose for a small nation to achieve. And that means changing the relationship between leaders and led and building trust to allow you to manage that shared prosperity and that stakeholder democracy.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there.
I don't see that
yes, in
present
any of this.
In the consciousness of the existing leaders.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Very comprehensive, Dr. Tiwari. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's just, before we go, let's just take a look at what we call Watch This. It's an interesting story. It comes from Debe, say about somebody who's alleged to be a scammer.
No, I want to train, yeah, I want to train. You robbing people and taking their money. Now come to phone and girl. All the girls are sitting in a house. She stand up, she says she's waiting on you. I hope we catch him in Pinal this morning. You run all over. You run by an low price I run along on the road. I have a man who walks running down and you running. What do you make now? From my ID card. You make no from a ticket, so you can run. I didn't know about it. I leave fast over second on money and to the commercial. I leave my money coming out, run out the fast. That's a run. I beg people to run back to the fast.
Well, stay with us here at WESN because there's going to be much more discussion during the course of the day on this issue, the developments coming out of the political arena, the reshuffling in the cabinet, and much more. But for us here, that's our broadcast for this morning. We tell you, as always, you can keep in touch with us here at AM Prime on all our social media platforms. You can send your emails to amprime@wesncc.com. Thanks for watching. But, of course, news at the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point. I'm Andy Johnson. We see you tomorrow.